reality is the work of these law enforcement agencies go on. And while they're out there making our communities safer and putting the grab-us on bad guys, they put themselves at risk every day, just as they have historically, putting life and limb on the line for our betterment. Standing with us this morning, we have Roy Minter, Chief of the Savannah Police Department, Michael Surratt, Director, Chatham, Savannah Counter-Narcotics Team, John T. Wilshire, Sheriff of Chatham County, George W. Clark, Jr., Supervisory Special Agent, Savannah Office of the FBI, Savannah Solomon, Special Agent, Savannah Office of the FBI, Ralph Ferrario, Resident Agent in Charge, Savannah Resident Office, U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, Devron Ramcharan, Group Supervisor, Savannah DEA, Joseph Hood, Task Force Officer, Savannah DEA, Antonio Gomez, Inspector in Charge, Miami Division, U.S. Postal Inspection Service, a finer law enforcement officer we've never had the pleasure of dealing with. Juan Vargas, Assistant Inspector in Charge, Miami Division, U.S. Postal Inspection Service, Thomas Plumley, Inspector, U.S. Postal Inspection Service. And on the prosecutorial side, Frank Pennington and Noah Abrams, Assistant United States Attorney, joined in partnership with Tim Raffini, Assistant District Attorney, Chatham DA's Office. Many thanks to each of you for being here with us and amplifying what we've done, and please forgive me for those that I've unintentionally skipped over. When we met here a couple of weeks ago, you'll recall that I said, as I often do, that it takes a network to fight a network. And today's announcement is yet another powerful example of a network of good guys taking down gang-related criminal conspiracies, trafficking drugs, and fanning the flames of violence in our communities. In fact, violent crime was the catalyst for this investigation, an increasing amount of street-level violence that seemed to indicate an alarming level of boldness and brazenness, particularly among the younger and likely gang-affiliated members of this conspiracy. The agencies you see here today came together to coordinate their efforts to take those criminals off the streets and to shut down their operation that spread poison throughout the greater Chatham County community. Under the umbrella of the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, or as we call it, OCDETF, Operation Deadlier Catch demonstrates once again the success of our law enforcement network in infiltrating and eliminating a criminal drug trafficking conspiracy. The United States District Court recently unsealed U.S. v. Bullock et al., a 27-count indictment for a drug trafficking conspiracy moving cocaine, crack cocaine, heroin, and marijuana from Mexico via California to Savannah. We have filed 78 federal felony charges against 29 defendants. Several of them, primarily street-level drug dealers, are affiliated with a local street gang and were increasingly violent in their activities, especially as it related to what they perceived as potential competitors. In fact, in one instance, one of the defendants was captured on hidden camera, repeatedly firing at a vehicle that he believed was driving away with a rival therein. And no, I'm sorry, we can't share that video with you at this time, but news of this episode highlights the fact that of the 29 defendants, nearly half of them are charged with a total of 20 firearms felonies, including conspiracy to use, carry, or possess firearms, a charge that carries a penalty of up to 20 years in prison. At least 14 firearms were seized during this investigation. For those who ask how these investigations make the community safer, those numbers provide the unmistakable answer. A dozen criminal defendants and more than a dozen illegally possessed weapons are no longer on our streets, period. That dozen is included in the 29 overall defendants. In addition, investigators in Operation Deadlier Catch seized 24 kilograms of cocaine, 126 pounds of marijuana, 3 kilos of heroin, and more than $1.5 million in cash and other assets, including jewelry, vehicles, and 2 homes that were used as part of the drug trafficking network. All but 5 of the defendants in this case are in custody now and have been making their initial court appearances. And there is still a tremendous amount of hard work remaining. But today I would like to applaud the courageous law enforcement personnel who sacrifice their time, their safety, and often their lives to identify, infiltrate, and dismantle these criminal organizations that threaten the safety and security of all of us. This includes the FBI, DEA, the Postal Inspection Service, the Chatham-Savannah Counter-Narcotics Team, the Savannah Police Department, the Chatham Police Department, and the Chatham County Sheriff's Office. As I've said before, it should be abundantly clear that our network is bigger, stronger, smarter, and faster than the gang's network. And with our outstanding law enforcement partners, we will continue to relentlessly pursue these criminal conspiracies on behalf of the good people of our communities, utilizing the best practices shared with us by the Georgia Gang Investigators Association. We'll now have remarks from some of those who represent the agencies involved in this operation. First, I'd ask Chief of the Savannah Police Department, Roy Minter, to come forward and share. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Christine. I want to start by thanking our federal partners for all the hard work they put into this operation. I want to thank AUSA, Bobby Christine. I realize that your work isn't done yet. You still have a lot to do. Of course, the result of this extensive operation and investigation, dangerous criminals being removed from our community. This was a sophisticated operation where the suspects apparently thought they could outsmart law enforcement. Obviously, by our presence here today, that didn't happen. So to others in our community and other communities who think they can get away with this type of behavior, I have a very clear message for you. You will be next. The Savannah Police Department and our federal partners are ready, willing, and able to continue these types of investigations if needed to keep our community safe. We will not tolerate this or any other type of criminal actions in our community, and we will vigorously pursue and assist with the prosecution of anyone who commits criminal acts and threatens the safety of our great community. So once again, thanks to all of our federal law enforcement partners, and thanks to all of the investigators who spent a lot of hard work, time, and energy in bringing this investigation to culmination. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Next, I'd ask George Clark, Jr., Supervisory Special Agent, Savannah Office of the FBI, to come forward.
Good morning, my name is Will Clark. I'm the Senior Supervisory Resident Agent of the Savannah and Brunswick offices of the FBI. Here today on behalf of our Special Agent in Charge, Chris Hacker, who unfortunately couldn't be here today. He wanted me to convey that the drug problem in our communities has become a national security issue that plays itself out on our streets every day. The problem is getting worse, and we have to work together to reduce the supply of drugs coming into cities like Savannah. Violent crimes that result from drug trafficking can affect every neighborhood. The threats cry out for an even more concerted level of collaboration. We as law enforcement partners on the federal, state, and local level need to stick together and rely on each other for information, experience, and best practices. There is no better example of the value of our partnerships in Operation Deadliest Catch. The removal of drugs and more than 24 alleged gang members immediately makes the streets of Savannah safer, thanks to those partnerships.
I mentioned to you earlier at the beginning of my comments that instrumental in this operation was Inspector Thomas Plumley of the U.S. Postal Inspection Service. I cannot say enough about the heavy lifting he does every day leading his team to effect change and safety for our community. But when I talk about a network, we all have bosses, and we are blessed today to have a physical representation of the commitment of the U.S. Postal Service in this operation, as so many others. With us, Antonio Gomez, Inspector in Charge, all the way from the Miami Division, to share his thoughts with us in support of this operation. Sir?
Well, thank you, Mr. Christine, not only for the introduction, but for your leadership. As a lot of our colleagues have already stated, it's under the leadership of Mr. Christine in this office that federal, state, and local partners can come together in order to affect this kind of results to help keep our communities safe. One of the main missions of the United States Postal Inspection Service is to ensure that the Postal Service is not used as a delivery system for these drug trafficking organizations, to make sure that we're keeping our community safe, and from the Inspection Service's additional return on investment to ensure that our letter carriers who are out there servicing our community are not unwillingly and unknowingly delivering these narcotics or narcotics proceeds in our communities and putting themselves at harm's risk when they're simply trying to do their jobs. So I want to thank all of our federal, state, and local partners for our continued collaboration, so you can see what happens when we all get together and work on a problem and on a project, the results that we can get. It's a tremendous honor and privilege to be here with you today, and again, I want to thank everybody for the continued cooperation.
Thank you, sir. And again, thank you to all our law enforcement and prosecutorial partners. We appreciate you. I say it frequently that while the federal government can bring expertise, training, and resources to the fight, the reality is 85% of law enforcement is not federal. And so without our deep partnerships, we could not execute these sorts of missions. I will offer to you these individuals and myself for any brief set of questions you might have, bearing in mind that it's a continuing investigation with some portions of it still sealed. We will take any questions that you might have. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I want to know more about your involvement. How did these criminals use the U.S. Postal Service to aid with whatever they were doing?
Well, as Mr. Christine stated, we certainly are not going to be talking about anything that's law enforcement sensitive. But again, we work collaboratively with everybody that you see up here to make sure that we're identifying any parcels or any kind of other packages that may be being used by these organizations, to make sure that we take them out of the system to, again, keep our community safe and keep our carriers safe. But once again, law enforcement sensitive things we won't be discussing today. Thank you.
Think about the leadership it takes from the Postal Inspection Service. As is the case with so many federal agencies, you know, we think of all the resources in the world, but the reality is there is a paucity in the number of agents out there. There's enough to keep us safe and keep on the front lines, but really, there's only a handful of them. There's not fewer Americans, right? There's not less mail being delivered, but the resources available to these folks are stretched. But the Postal Inspection Service, as the FBI and DEA, they have great tensile strength, getting more done with fewer resources on our behalf. Yes, ma'am.
I know you said it's still ongoing, but do you have, I guess, a number of months or years of how long since it started?
So this one would have begun, Frank, off the top of your head, 2016. One of the beautiful things is that a lot of these gang affiliates, not everybody in this case is ganged up, but the reality is they are the shot callers in most instances. They like to talk about omerta and how they keep their mouth shut. Baloney. When they roll over and realize there is no parole in the federal system, they start singing, and you pull that thread. You were here with me just a couple of weeks ago when we explained the 64 bad guys we put the Grabbus on just about 2 weeks ago was a result of pulling that thread in the Ghostface Gangsters case, Operation Vanilla Gorilla, from 2018. I suspect you will be getting another invitation for a like number of folks in the very near future. We just have this wonderful party, and we keep inviting these folks, and they keep coming. Yes, ma'am.
One more guy, sorry. Sorry. For an arrest like this, I know you talked about some of them are going through court right now. What could a prison sentence look like for them?
Well, depending on the charge set, I expressed to you what the gun charges would look like. Some of these dope charges, what are the ranges there, Frank? And let me tell you, people talk about the victimless crimes. There are no victimless crimes in these cases, right? There are not. And our prisons are not full of folks who for the first time get picked up. That's just simply not the case. The reality is repeat offenders are the ones who populate our prisons, and they're looking at stiff jail time. You are blessed to live in one of the few federal districts where, for the last 40 months, the crime rate has dropped. Through this spring and summer of unrest, we find ourselves, at least through July 2020, in the Southern District of Georgia, where every municipality is seeing the crime rate drop. Now, you have seen, and Chief Mentor and his crew have been data-driven. I mean, everything they do is the result of learn and study and data-driven analysis. They have identified for all of us the reality of a spike in some gun crimes locally. The overall crime rate is dropping, but these professional law enforcement officers dial it in tight, and we get after it in partnership in those areas where it's most necessary.
You actually pointed out one of my questions. This is maybe the third announcement and a third big announcement in the last 2 months. Why is this all happening at once?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I would say lovingly, a close scrutiny of our numbers would show in some areas a 340% increase over the last 36 to 40 months of productivity. I would suggest to you it isn't all of a sudden, but what we do know is that when you tell our story, one, good law-abiding folks will bring us more intelligence, and two, bad guys who might be scratching their chin thinking about creating crime in the future are given pause. So I'm not being critical at all. These numbers are reflective of what we've been doing every month since we've been here, but you're helping us get that message out, and you're doing God's work, and we appreciate you being here to do that. Thank you all. I think some of these individuals would make themselves available to you if you want to do one-on-ones or individuals. And if not, they'll probably smack me around later for having suggested that. Thank you all. Tim, thank you for being with us. Buddy.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for support.
It's a pleasure meeting you. I'm going to try
Will
and stop
Clark.
by.
Please do.
We can talk before.
Thomas
I'd love to
Plumlee
spend some time with you.
He needs you to say that.
You know, I was we all.
I mean, it's
I was. Yeah.
value.
Stay in touch.